And here we go. Hello there, my name's Mr. Cow. Welcome to my eccentric academy. Now, when I was thinking about where to next take you on our world-building journey, I thought there's only really one place to start, and that is in the beginning. This is the story of the Creation War. Now, at the beginning of time, there was just one being, who we'll call the Creator. The Creator would create 5 children. Their names were Ymir, Kronos, Eden, Astronos, and the one who would lose his name to time. Now, these 5 children would go on to create worlds and lives of their own. Eden would create the elves and fairy lives, as well as the land that they ruled over, known as Elfhaven. Astronos would go far away from his siblings, create the stars and all the life that would live among them. Ymir would create demons of ice and fire, and Kronos would create the Olympian gods, which he would then grow jealous of, and would create the concept of time so that no one would live long enough to become as great as him, as a response to how the Olympian gods made him feel. And the one whose name would be lost to time would move into the shadows, tempted away from the Creator's rules, where he would eventually become less of a being and more of the living embodiment of temptation itself. Now, the Creation War itself would start after Eden created 2 children, Odin and his brother, who would then decide to wage war on the creations of Ymir. It wouldn't be very long before one of Ymir's fire creatures, who would eventually go on to be called Thomas Locke, would join sides with the sons of Eden. Odin and his brother would make a pact with Thomas Locke that he would be considered as the 3rd brother. Now, the war would eventually come to a close when the 3 brothers would end up killing Ymir himself and using his corpse to mold the earth, or what they called Midgard. Now, after an unspecified amount of time, the 3 brothers would eventually stumble upon some driftwood, and with the help of the Creator, they would shape that driftwood into what would be the first 2 humans. Now, I'm sure you've sort of picked up on where a lot of this creation myth came from, and you shouldn't be too surprised if you've seen Men with Umbrellas, knowing who my Thomas Locke character represents. However, in my creation story, I want to sort of reflect a lot of creation stories and mythologies. So with that being said, this concept of the Creation War, I want to draw more upon it. So this is my first video on the Creation War, but hopefully you can expect even more coming down the line. But if you're curious to hear more about my mythology and stories, you can subscribe to this channel. Of course, you can also check out the Men with Umbrellas series, which, I'm currently world building for, as well as working on something of a reboot. So if you're interested in any of that, you can subscribe to this channel, you can check out my animation channel, and yeah, I would be happy to hear any feedback you have about my sort of world building. And my hopes are that together, through this eccentric academy, we can build a truly interesting mythology. Thank you for watching.